Hello, welcome back to episode 2 of the Just Start Sewing series, where I am teaching my best friend Nicole how to sew, and I'm taking you along for the journey. If you haven't watched episode 1, I do suggest you go back and watch that real quick just to make sure that you have everything you need, check everything off your list, and then we can move on. Today we are jumping into familiarizing yourself with your sewing machine. Nicole is not here for today's lesson, but I didn't feel she needed to be here for me just chatting, so let's jump in and get started. Here is my machine. It is a very basic beginner singer start machine. It's been with me for a long time. It's gotten me through all of my projects. Machines are different and they can vary, but they function the same. So it shouldn't be too different between my machine and yours. I figured we would start off by threading the machine. This is a very basic thing that you will obviously need to know how to do, so let's talk about it. So we have the top thread up here, and the bottom thread, or bobbin thread, is down here. In very simple terms, because I honestly don't always understand it, these two threads interlock and create stitches on the top and bottom of your fabric. So this can hold 2 or more pieces of fabric together by the threads interlocking. So first, I'm going to find an empty bobbin and we're going to load it up just so I can show you that process. So again, our top thread is going to go here. And we need to load our bobbin with matching thread. So I'm going to place it on the bobbin winder. And then to engage the bobbin winder, because right now if I were to press down on my foot pedal, the needle would go up and down. So I'm going to switch this to the right, and then it's engaged. Again, if this is not engaged, the needle is going to move. Once this is engaged, this spins. As you can see on my machine, it makes it very easy with these little illustrations on the top of the machine. You're going to go through this, follow the arrow. For winding the bobbin, we're going to come around and go the right of this circle. And then as this illustration shows, it's going to go up and through one of the top holes of the bobbin. Poke that through. I'm going to hold on to this thread, lock it in place, and then press down on the foot pedal. I like to guide the thread up and down a little bit, and then once it's wound far enough that I can't see the silver anymore, I let go of the thread. Once the bobbin's full, you'll cut the thread, unlock, and then it's time to put the bobbin in what's called the bobbin cage. When I load mine, I like to think of the number 6. So this is the top, and that's how you want to load it into your cage. This pulls through here and locks in between these 2 notches so it can move freely. And then I will set it inside my machine. You should have a manual for your sewing machine, but if you don't, you can typically follow the arrows, like I said, to thread your machine. So it goes through this hole. This illustration shows that it loops around here. We'll follow this arrow down here. We'll swoop it up and around. Then this arrow shows that it hooks around. And this arrow shows that it will go all the way down through here. It's going to hook onto this hook above the needle, and finally thread through the needle. This is the most important part and can often be the trickiest. We need to grab the bobbin thread and pull it up through this hole. To do this, we're going to hold on to our top thread, manually send the needle down. It's going to pick up the bobbin thread, and it's going to grab the bobbin thread, which you will pull through to the top. Once you have the top and the bottom coming out of this hole, your machine is threaded. We'll close this up, and we're ready to go. As another example of how similar machines can be, I'm going to thread Nicole's machine just to show you that it is fairly simple from machine to machine. And as always, you can look up a video on YouTube with your specific sewing machine brand and type in how to thread this machine if you need more in-depth instructions. And I'm gonna see if I can figure this out on my own. This machine comes with a little holder because the thread is stored horizontally. So let's see, this is gonna go, that's step 1. This one has numbers on it. Step 2, step 3, step 4. I can't really tell. I think it does have a little hook like mine does. We'll go through the needle. So I think the top one is threaded, I think. And then her bobbin cage lives inside the sewing machine. So this is a little different than mine. It doesn't have the cage that is removed and put in. So the bobbin thread, from what I understand, is going to circle this way. So not like a 6. It's going to drop in here. There's a small arrow here that pulls that through. There's also a little image that shows you which way the thread goes. Okay, so we did that. It's gonna come through here. We manually stitched and pulled the bobbin thread through this hole, and this machine is threaded. All right, now that we've done the basic step of threading the machine, now we need to break down each part of the machine. It sounds boring, but it's very important. This is the anatomy of the machine, and it's important to know the terminology as you learn to sew. As we mentioned earlier, we have the top thread, we have the bobbin thread. Next, you'll probably notice there's lots of numbers and cranks and wheels on this machine. Let's cover them. First, we have the sewing machine tension. This is how hard the gears inside are holding onto the thread. Let me just state, I am not a sewing machine professional, so my terminology and language might not be correct, but this is how I understand sewing. The lower the number, the looser it holds your thread. The higher the number, the tighter it holds your thread. There's generally a kind of universal, just standard setting, which mine has a square around. So I will 99% of the time be sewing with the number 4 tension. Next, we have your stitch setting. This is the length and pattern of your stitches. Yours might look different. Some machines have very decorative settings on them. Mine has a few that I've never used before. The ones that I use most often are the standard stitch, the zigzag stitch, and the buttonhole maker. Next, we have the hand crank. This is on the side here, and it moves the needle up and down as you turn it. I use this when threading the machine. I use it when I'm doing very precise sewing. Maybe I'm sewing a tight corner, so I want to go slowly and do the sewing manually. This is also helpful if you get anything snagged in the machine and you need to carefully remove the needle to get your project unstuck. Next, we have the foot pedal. This is how we control the machine and the speed of the needle. It takes time to get used to, but just like driving a car, you will figure this out in time. Next, we have the feed dogs. These are the metal teeth that lie below the presser foot on the sewing machine. This is what moves your fabric while you sew. It picks the fabric up and sends it back. You can see them moving when I manually turn the needle. And then right above that, we have the presser foot. There are several presser foots. You might find a quilting foot or a zipper foot. I will usually use this one. This is just a standard presser foot that came with the machine, but you can change them out for different types of feet. There will be a lever on your machine to lift this presser foot up or set it down on your project. In the down position, the presser foot is engaged and the tension is engaged. So when you pull this top thread, it's really not moving because the tension is placed on the string. When the presser foot is up, you can pull this string freely. So you should never be sewing while the presser foot is up, only when it's down. Next, we have the back stitch button. This is for sewing in reverse. The feed dogs will move up and towards you, moving your fabric backward when this is down. This is to set or lock your stitches in place. You'll hear the term forward and back a lot on this channel, and this is what that means. You will likely begin every stitch and end every stitch with a forward and back stitch. This locks the stitches in place, otherwise the stitches can be pulled free and loosened very easily. In some scenarios, you will want to leave your stitches free when perhaps you are gathering fabric, but we can talk about this later. In general, when sewing any seam, you will want to start with a few stitches, hold this down to reverse for 2 to 3 stitches, and then continue sewing as usual, ending the seam the very same way with a forward and back stitch. Next up, we have the throat plate or needle plate. There is a seam gauge on the right, which is helpful when sewing. I have seen people lay down a piece of tape to help guide them to sew straight, and this can help you with your seam allowance. If you don't know that term, we will learn that in the next video. We mentioned this before, but this is your bobbin winder. On this side, you will see a thread cutter. I don't use this often as I find it pulls my projects, but in a bind, it's really nice to pull your threads up and cut them easily. Next up, we have where your needle is inserted. There is a small screw here that holds it in place. When you untighten it, the needle is released. There are different types of needles. This is just a universal needle, which again, I use about 99% of the time I sew. You can buy denim needles, jersey needles, stretch needles, but for now, a universal needle would probably be just fine for your uses. To finish this video, I thought we should practice a little bit. This will help us to get a little more familiar with the machine if you haven't used one before. You are just going to need a pen and a plain piece of paper. I'm going to draw out a design on this paper, maybe some rectangles, a squiggly line, This looks pretty bad, but we'll go with it. We are going to have a blank, unthreaded machine. You don't need anything, just the needle. We're going to set our presser foot down and start right where your drawing starts. Use the manual crank to set your needle down into the paper. And then we're going to practice using the foot pedal. This will hopefully help you get comfortable with the manual hand crank and the speed of your machine using the foot pedal. I'm going to manually set down my needle, so I'm somewhat in the corner of this square I drew. Pivot the paper, follow the line. This one's a curve, so it's a little tricky. And so on and so forth until you've finished your drawing. I think I did pretty good. So try out this practice session, get more familiar with how the machine works. Maybe you can play with your stitch settings and try a zigzag stitch. And once you're feeling comfortable on your machine, we're gonna move to the next episode where we will talk about sewing terminology. But these will be terms that you'll find in patterns, so get excited because we're actually getting closer to sewing something. See you in the next episode. Cheers.